Hello, hello. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Good afternoon.
Good
How was it?
afternoon.
Did you run or walk? What were you doing this morning?
I was just walking. Yeah.
Just
No,
walking.
no. Yeah. Um, I did a run up Grisdale Pike yesterday. Well, I say run. I hauled my sorry ass up a very, very steep side of a hill. It was bigger than I anticipated, let's put it that way.
I've never been
Um,
up there. How big is Grisdale Pike?
it's lovely. Just under 800 meters, actually.
Oof.
Yeah. Well, I thought that because I started from Winlatter Forest, I thought, well, I'm halfway up it anyway. But it was just a very steep, super steep up the nose, which I'm glad I did actually, because had I taken the route the way I initially planned it, I'd have been coming down it, um, and I would have been cursing. But as it was, I'm very happy going up. Well, as long as I can put my lungs in occasionally. But then it was a lovely more gentle slope running all the way down, which was great. Yay, I can do it.
Yay! How's
How about
how's
you?
me? Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
good. I had a really good week last week. I did everything. I had like 50,
Everything you were
53.
told to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 53 miles of running, two
Yeah.
sets of strength and conditioning, and a bit of yoga.
Oh, wow. Okay.
How about that?
That is good. Oh
If
my
I
God,
if
I could tell you about the yoga I did last week, but it was hilarious. But I won't. I'll tell you that in private because it was so
Okay.
funny. It was it was yoga to dance music.
Oh, that right. Have you ever seen Peep Show? Where
No, but I know of it.
right, there's something called Rainbow Rhythms in Peep Show. If anyone ever watched it, it's a lot of sort of emotional dancing to different colors, if you like. It sounds
That
similar.
kind of, yes, yes, yes. Yes, lots of giggling. But I mean, it was
Nice.
still yoga. I mean, it was still stretching these old muscles. So, did you? I mean, do you do it regularly, or was this a
No,
one-off?
no, it was no, hopefully not a one-off.
It's the
Um,
start of a new relationship.
exactly. Yeah. The worst one for me is sitting on the floor and then reaching forward, like just a forward fold, sort of sat down. I can't. It's like, oh, just grab the bottom of your feet, or or if you can't reach your feet, grab your shins. And like, I can't. I can barely even reach my shins. Like, I'm just sat there, and it's like, and come back up, and I feel like I'd barely even move. It's like,
Oh, that's funny.
but you've
That's
got to start
funny.
somewhere, don't you?
You do. I mean, I think that's kind of why I started it because I mean, I used to be quite bendy and could touch my toes without really thinking about it, but all of a sudden everything's just gone, oh, oh, wait, I can't. Why can't I touch my knees anymore? Yeah, it's got to be done,
It
sadly.
does, and I think it just the as soon as I'm creeping towards 40 now, so I've got to recognize
Oh,
that.
oh, bless your cotton little socks. Oh, well, honestly, 40s were my best decade. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Massively. Yeah, no, I was at my fittest, my most strong, fastest. Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, everything you're taking, you've got the experience, but you do still have the youthful body to do with it, if that makes sense.
I like it. I like it. Well, then
Yeah,
let's hope it is for me too.
yeah. No, it will be. Absolutely, it will be. And actually, our guest, Chris Wright, um, he will be interesting. He has a PhD in the physiology aspect of. He's a
Mm.
spine runner,
Yeah.
and a little bit older, I think, more my age than yours.
Hmm.
So he has just entered the room. So let's admit him. Let's let him in, and we can ask him.
Yes.
And we have the old mute, unmute, video, unvideo. Hello, Chris.
Hello,
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
There you are. There you are. Excellent. Welcome. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, we
We've
were we were just comparing um, old and young bodies, yoga, movement, touching toes or not. And
Yeah,
I said you might have some input onto that subject.
yeah, yeah. I don't think I've ever been able to touch my toes, to be honest. Um, not that flexible. Yeah, that's something to work on. But general
Mm.
changes with our bodies as we get older, definitely something I've kind of used myself as a living experiment over the last sort of decade as
Okay,
to
yeah.
what I can do. And I mean, I'm a biologist by trade, so there's that inquisitivity about
Mm.
our bodies and how we can push them.
How they change and how you adapt, I presume.
Yeah, well, I think from my personal perspective, I because I started ultra running, and when I sort of say ultra running, it's always been mountain ultra running, so it's not just been
Mm.
distance. It's always involved, vert and rough terrain as well, which has an even greater impact on the body. Um, because I started when I was 50, I didn't really
Oh
have that.
wow.
I
Okay.
didn't really have that comparison of what it's like in my 20s and 30s.
Mm.
I really
So,
Wow.
like that. I really like
But you
that.
are, yeah, but you're a mountaineer, are you, as well as a biologist, or
yes.
what's your
So,
background?
so my sort of academic background, degrees and studying what I did was biology, medical based. Um, but the mountaineering, I mean, I did my ML in '94, so that's always kind of featured in my life, really, as a teacher, for spanning 30 years. So I've always used that, and then the mountaineering sort of creeps in more and more. And certainly for the last 10 years, it's been more, climbing and mountaineering than sort of hill walking.
Is
With
that
the
what got you in? Sorry, Robin, go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, go on. I was going to ask, do you have to refresh your mountain leader, or does it just stay active forever as soon as you've got it?
Well, I mean, you have to do your first aid every 3 years for the qualification to remain valid. It's a very good question that because technically no, but
Mm,
what people look at, certainly if you were working on a job or if something, God forbid, were to happen and you face some kind of legal challenge, people don't just look at the certificate, they'll look at your currency.
mm.
What have you been doing recently? And so I belong to the Association of Mountaineering Instructors, AMI, for the climbing and mountaineering side, and we now have to do a certain amount of mandatory CPD,
That's
like
really good, isn't it?
rolling CPD, and
Mm.
well, members of AMI at the sharp end, it is more consequential the things that we do than say. I'm not demeaning being a mountaineer by any sense, but it's a lot more consequential. A lot of the work that you do, so yeah, you got to stay current.
Yeah, yeah, that's very
It's
interesting.
interesting though, because I mean nobody's ever asked me for um my logbook on the Mountain Training Association website or whatever it is, TADA, whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know, I apply for jobs. As long as I've got a certificate and insurance and the first
yeah.
aid, they're like, yeah, bring it on. It's like no one's asked me if I have we done anything
No,
else.
well, it's rare that people do, whether or not they sort of look at you on social media to see what you're doing, or just say, well, I assume that this person is keeping up to date, and if something goes wrong, then I'll have a look, which isn't the way to do it.
Mm.
But yeah, there are some times that I've had to send my number off and invite people to peruse my D log, as it's called, my digital
That's it.
digital
Yeah.
logbook. Um, But it's incumbent upon all of us, if we're certainly if we're working in a professional capacity, to stay current anyway.
I've
And
just
it's
been
good.
looking at, yeah, I've just been looking at all that from really boring accountancy perspective today. Just like, oh, what a CPD do I need to be doing? But yeah, it's relevant for everything, really, isn't it? You have to keep up with the times.
I love it. I love, skill acquisition and training and learning new things or refreshing new things, learning from different people. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
I don't
Oh,
see it as a hint as a chore.
oh, that's good. I need to adopt that mindset, I think.
Well, I think it shows a it's a profession that you're in because you love it. It's
Mm,
not something that it's not like a job that you're like, oh well, I've just got to do this to pay the bills.
Mhm.
You're in it for a reason, aren't you? And therefore it's generally because you love it.
yeah, and it's interesting to see how things have developed. So, if we scroll back to when I turned 50 and started doing the ultra endurance events in the mountains, I'd been an ML and mountaineer for quite some time then, and sort of running, but not big distances, running to keep fit, really. So it was marrying the two together. And so the mountains was the obvious choice,
Mm.
sort of, do the distance. So that's, when I set my eyes on, I mean, the first thing that I set my eyes on was actually the UTMB, which is obviously a biggie, but it
Mm.
was, and that's formed part of the story really in terms of what's happened because, which I think is particularly for people who do start later. Um, for me, it's always been about that looks really good. That looks really challenging. I'd love to be able to do that, but I'm not sure whether I can. And there's a difference there between that sort of glass half full, glass half empty approach. It's I realize the seriousness of this undertaking, and it's really punishing. Can I get there? And I think I started my journey with that mindset. Um,
But with your background, surely it's simply a case of pace. Your knowledge of the mountains and how to travel through them is there. Whereas for a lot of people, it's the opposite. A lot of people are runners, and then they think, oh, that mountain looks good. I'm going to go and enter that mountain race, but they have no knowledge of navigation or safety or how to see a storm approaching and know that you have to put your kit in before it gets to you, all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, spot on there actually. So unwittingly, my mountaineering background has benefited enormously, particularly in things like the spine race as well, which is about survival and
Mm.
personal admin. But I think if we go back to something like the UTMB, I think what I found daunting about it was it's 10,000 meters of climbing over 105 miles, in a weekend. So it wasn't the mountain aspect. It was, can I physically endure that sort of punishment in the time that's required? So that was the unknown. Um, but you're right. There's a lot of people drop out. There's about a third drop out, and I saw a lot of people who were dropping out. Just sounds trivial, but when it started raining, and they thought,
Mm.
I'm not used to running in the rain. I don't want to put my waterproofs on. I'm staying at this checkpoint. So yeah, the weather didn't bother
Funny.
me,
Yeah.
but it would some people.
So you set your sights on UTMB to start with. Was that actually the first ultra you ended up doing?
No, because it's quite a journey to get there. The first one I did was a Lakeland 50. And that was my sort of 50 at 50 thing. That's what attracted it. I thought, I wonder if I can run 50 miles or move 50 miles through the mountains. That was an
Mm.
unknown at the time because I'd never done it before or anything like it. Um, and I
When did you do that?
that was
Sorry.
2012.
Okay.
So yeah, so I turned 50 in 2012. So I was doing quite a lot of climbing at the time, boosting up the ultra running. Um, I treated myself in the Alps, and I climbed the Matterhorn that year.
Wow.
And all the training was for that, really, to get fit for that. Um, I also did an OM that year, an A class OM, and that got the points to enter uh, this race, the CCC. So that was it was getting on the ladder of the UTMB series, which was quite small in 2012. It wasn't a big race
Mhm.
series like it is now. So the CCC was the second ultra that I did, which
Mm.
sounds crazy, really. Looking
It's
That's
not
back,
at
great.
all. No, I don't think that's crazy.
um, yeah, but again, it was the unknowns, and I think this. I've sort of reflected on this a lot. Every time I've done a different challenge, there's always been okay, let's go the next step up. It's unknown territory, but I'll put a plan and a strategy in place to
Mm.
get there. And not knowing what the outcome would be, and for me, it's been those journeys, those adventures into the unknown, that's what's been really exciting. And then obviously you achieve, and that's just different level really.
How long
Uh,
before the spine were you thinking about doing the spine?
Good question. Quite some time. So my last teaching job, I was at Giggleswick School, based near
Great
Settle.
name.
settle.
And in I think the first spine race was around 2012, I think.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I can recall seeing in those early days, 2012, 13, 14, on TV, some news clips about the race. And it was quite raw and rudimentary then, not many competitors. And again, it just sort of captured my interest. Thought, wow, that looks great. I'd love to do that. But
Mm.
I
it
think you
looked,
were exactly the sort of person they wanted to attract. I mean,
yeah,
that was you were their
Definitely.
ideal customer initially, initially. Anyway, maybe not.
yeah,
And they've widened the scope now, but I think you had to be so much more self-sufficient back then.
Mm.
mm.
Um,
And I think again, because I've not really got a sort of running pedigree, or it's certainly not in the family, and I didn't do it when I was younger. When you start when you're older, there is that uncertainty about, well, I've not got a track record. What can I do? As opposed to, I think if you're running when you're younger and you've been reasonably handy, and you've gone up through the categories and you become a vet 40 and then a vet 50, you kind of know what you
Mm.
can achieve or what you're capable of, although things might change and slow down a bit. So, coming in at it for starters at 50 was, the massive unknown. So you see the racers who are, say, on that news clip, and you think, wow, well, they're obviously hardened runners who've been doing it for years. Can I do that?
mm,
Um,
mm.
that was so it. To answer your question, it was probably, yeah, a good 9 or 10 years before I did it, when I first thought that'd be a cool thing to do.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
When was your first one?
23.
23.
So yeah, so obviously because I was teaching, and it was always on, at the start of term, I knew there was no chance of me getting a week off to do the spine race.
Oh,
It was out of
oh,
question. And that's one of the things about being a teacher. You're limited. You do have good holidays, and you got to fit stuff in your holidays. But in between, there's particularly in a busy boarding school, there's not a lot of chance really. Um, so then, if you fast forward to, I stopped my teaching in 2019, and that's when I sort of went freelance and finished off my mountaineering and climbing instructor award. COVID came, which sort of wiped out 2 years' work,
Mm.
or stopped me basically getting established for about 2 years. There was just
Yeah.
That's
nothing.
tough. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was kind of right. I just quit a really good job, and I've got no income now.
That is
Uh,
dreadful timing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Never
so
mind.
yeah, and I think so. I did safety team. I volunteered for safety team in 2020. So that was part of my
Mm.
strategy, was to volunteer and
Mm.
have a look close up what it was like. Um, so that was the winter 2020. 21 was obviously no go. And after the 2020, I did get a race entry for 21, but obviously nothing happened. And in 22, the spine organisers gave people the chance from 21 to defer for either 1 year or 2 years. So I decided to defer for 2 years because with my knowledge about the pandemic, I thought it's still going to be lurking in 2022, and it was.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
so I volunteered again in 2022 on the safety team, which gave me even more insight. And then had my place in 23. That was the full.
So it was a real long-term plan then. Was it for three years you'd been sort of preparing yourself to do it really mentally?
Yeah. Yeah, so it was on the back burner as a on the wish list for a long time, but then sort of came into focus. Yeah, a good 3 to 4 years before I did it,
It's
and
re
yeah, with the prep over those 3 years.
it's really funny looking at how you did. You seem to do it backwards because you did the full in 23, then the north in 24, and then the south in 26.
Correct,
Like whereas ordinarily people sort of build up their confidence to going for the full over a number of years.
correct.
What gave
Yeah,
you the confidence to go straight for the 268 from off the
yeah,
bat?
great question. Well, going back to my kind of mantra about I'm not sure whether I can. That kind of it's an unknown. So on the back of the UTMB, when I had the chance to end something in 23, I thought, well, I'm not demeaning the Challenge of the South in any way, shape, or form. It is a hard race.
Hmm.
And, I can tell you more about that from my adventure this year. But I just thought, well, I think I can probably achieve that. Okay. So therefore, I'd rather post myself a bigger challenge as something
Nice.
that was unknown. And
Mm.
the Challenge of North wasn't available in 23. It was
Right.
just
Okay.
the south and the full,
Hmm.
I
Mm.
think. So
Yeah.
so that's why.
Okay.
So yeah, I wanted to have I wanted to have a go at something that I knew was going to be achievable but hard.
What what else had you done though? I mean, presumably you'd done other ultras between 2012 and
Yeah.
2023.
So a brief potted history. So I don't know how much you are familiar with the getting a place in the UTMB, the full race. I mean, now people use the acronym UTMB for many different races, but
Hmm.
if
Mm.
we would just think about it as that is that one race,
The
that
full
big
race.
race.
Yeah.
Yeah. So points wise, it's different now. It's a stones system. Whereas it used to be points, and you used to have act so many points, like I think it was 15 points over a minimum of 3 races. So with my triple C points from 2014, that's when I did the race 2014. I did some other ultras in 2015. I did the St. Cuthbert's Way, which is a nice
Yeah.
race in the
Hmm.
borders.
Yeah.
I had to then push out and do a 100 miler. So again, that was the next step. It was this big, unknown, this big, this big territory where I thought, how will I fare there? 100 miles. Wow, that's just like, that's that's a Cuthbert's Way and another ultra marathon on top.
Yeah. It's
How's
crazy,
that
isn't it?
possible? How's that possible? So I did a race called the St. Oswald's Way,
Oh, I
which
don't know that one.
Was
again it
that
start.
was
Go
that
on.
in 2016?
Yeah, I no 15. I did. I had to. So I had to get a load of races. I had to get my points up in 2015 for a 2016 entry.
Ah,
So
okay.
I had the
Yeah.
Triple C points, the St Cuthbert's Way, and this race called the St Oswald's, which
Awesome.
was from Lindisfarne, basically down the Northumberland coast, and then cuts inland, and it finishes near Hadrian's Wall at Chollerford.
I
So
did it in 16.
did you? There you go.
16
Yeah,
or
you know it.
17.
Right, there you
Yeah.
go. A great race. Great route.
Mm.
Um, so that qualified me points wise. Then you go into a ballot. So I was unsuccessful in the 2016 ballot. Then you start to lose points as you go through. So then I lost my triple C points. I had to do more races in 2016, and I did the Sandstone Way North. And then I didn't wasn't successful in the ballot for 2017. And then back, and this is why it was so hard to get to the start line, because a lot of people just don't always have the sort of the impetus to keep going with the points, or they get injured.
Mm.
Some
Yeah.
So I knew that if I kept the points up for the 2018 ballot and I was successful, that'd be it, game, done. So 2017, I what did I do? I did a great race called the Wanner down on the south coast, the Dorset coast.
The Warner.
Mhm.
What a great name.
Mm.
Oh,
That's
it's
our
brutal.
chaps epic endurance events now
Oh,
run
is
that.
it? Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's a tough. I thought, yeah, it'd be a southern flatty. No, not at all. It's,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, very tough race, and it's a strict. It's 81 miles, I think, and a strict sub 24 hour cutoff. Um, so, and then my strategy was to do three 5 point races and try and make it easy on myself. But I got poorly before one of the races in the summer, so that plan went sort of sideways, and I ended up having to do the only race I could do to get the points was a 120 miler, which was called the full Sandstone Way, from Berwick upon Tweed to Hexham.
Oh boy.
Righty.
So yeah, again, it was, well, I've got to do this. It was, I must do this, come
And did
what may.
that mindset really drive you through the race?
100%. It was
Mm.
it was definitely I cannot not finish.
Mm.
Otherwise it's 7 years
Yeah.
down the pan. So
But it didn't deter you.
Wow.
You like continued all those years. Like, I
yeah.
will get to UTMB.
Yeah,
But,
I guess that, yeah, it was a big drive.
but then you've still got the chance of being in the ballot or not.
Mm.
Well, so the thing is, so if I hadn't have completed that race in 2017, then my points would have expired and I'd have had to have started again, because you've got to keep them current. If you miss a year, then
Mm.
it all disappears. It's quite because the race is so popular. They've
Mm.
got to have some kind of selection system just to get people to the start.
Yeah. But wow. Yeah.
I do much prefer that system though to what it is now, where they sort of like squirrel you away to only a couple of races. Like you could choose between so many different races and like have so many
Mm.
different experiences. Not to say that Ultra Trail Snowdonia and the Arc of Attrition aren't good experiences, but like you really had a pick of the litter
Yeah,
Yeah.
to
You
just
had
get
a
these
lot more.
points. Yeah,
yeah. I
Mm.
mean, even the Bob Graham round used to carry points,
did
and
it?
yeah,
Didn't know
apparently,
that.
and and um, and the Lakeland 50 and Lakeland 100. Well, I got points in the
Mm.
Lakeland 50, but yeah, the UTMB landscape has changed significantly in the last 7 or 8 years.
So did you get to UTMB then?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah,
It
yeah. So
was that 2018?
that was 2018.
Yeah.
Um,
Good.
and sort of training wise, because again, you then in the arena thinking, well, how do I train for this? You know, it's so much vert. What am I training for? Am I training for time on feet, distance? Am I training for climbing speed? You know, sleep deprivation, what altitude, what am I training for? It's quite there's a lot of unknowns there.
What did you do? Where was your favorite training spot?
Um, yeah, so that kind of leads on quite nicely. So the Lake District. So basically, I set out to do a Bob Graham round in 2018, and so I pegged that in the diary for the start of June and trained through January, February, March, April, May for a Bob. I don't know whether you recall, but the winter of 2018 was quite brutal. It was beast from the east. There was a lot of snow in
Yeah.
January, February.
Mm.
Uh, you
Oh,
know, I was training with a friend, and you know, we had to bail on a lot of recce's because it was just snowed out or it was too cold. You know, your feet were numb after a few hours, and um, so yeah, and I didn't know how to train really. I just thought thrashing myself up hills would be it.
I mean, for the most part, I think that
technical.
works, doesn't it?
Well, it does link into another observation when we're talking about, you know, aging and the body and training. But yeah, I was unsuccessful on that bob attempt, but it got me to the end, the finish line of the UTMB. So it was
Mm.
job done.
Mm. When you say unsuccessful, do you mean in terms of sub 24 or did you not finish it?
No, I didn't finish. No, I kind of retired at Wasdale. And I think I know why it happened looking back. I just don't think I'd been doing those longer punishing runs for a long enough period of time. I'd done lots of base training, was aerobically fit, but hadn't really, yeah, done enough. And some people may say we don't need to do a lot of 6, 7, 8 hour runs, but I felt I needed to have more um, time on feet. And
Mm.
you know, the start of June from the end of January, you think you got lots of time, but then you take out the bad winter days, and it was actually quite a compact time. So it
Mm.
wasn't really. Um, so yeah, my kind of legs just seized really going over the Scafell Plateau.
How did you find the bob compared to doing UTMB then? Was there a different drive on that day, or did you? I mean, it's definitely applicable training, but
Yeah. So I mean, I've had 4 attempts to date, so I can reflecting on those. I I think so for the bob for the I because the pace you've got to go to sort of
Mm.
ensure you're going to
mm,
finish. It was I could go at a more controlled pace for me on the UTMB
right.
and finish. Um, you know, even though it's at altitude, you know, and you're going through 2 nights because the
Mm,
race starts at 6 p.m. on a Friday, so everybody goes through a night. So by the time you come into the Saturday night, you know you're a bit of a nodding donkey at times, basically. Um, so I think if I'm perfectly honest, I was a bit more daunted by the Bob Graham
mm.
round in terms of achieving that in that time.
You need to be quick, don't you? You need to have a pace and
Yeah,
stick to it, don't you?
and also you know I was quite novice. You know, even doing some of the recce's, I was taking a lot of the wrong lines. I'm you know far more genned up on the efficiency now and the lines and the
That
nutrition's
all
a really
makes a
big part.
difference.
Yeah,
Mm.
Yeah,
and the nutrition plays a really big part as well.
I think,
absolutely.
yeah, 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 definitely. I mean,
So
I'm going to say almost more so as you get older. I definitely need more nutrition and more precise nutrition now.
So if I can kind of just reflect a bit on so that the experiences and what I learned and what's changed. So certainly for that UTMB training, I really didn't know the right things to do. It was all basically hill climbing. There wasn't a lot of easy miles. There was no strength and conditioning per se, and I think that was one of my sort of downfalls up until about 3 years ago, because I'm sort of in the background, quite active in the mountains and carrying rucksacks, and I do bits of manual work and lumberjacking, and I'm always moving. I just thought I don't need to go to the gym. I haven't
Mhm.
got time or energy to go to the gym. Um, and one of the things that changed 3 years ago, well, just less than 3 years ago, so post, I think it's third attempt in September 23, that's when I got a coach. And that's when I got in touch with a chap called Tim Piggott. I don't know if
Yeah,
you've
Okay,
heard of
Tim.
Tim.
great
Yeah,
coach. Yeah, great coach.
yeah.
Yeah. So, I phoned Tim because during those years I was as helping a friend called Tom Hollins, who you probably know, who
Yeah.
who was doing the Wainwright. So I was helping Tom with some of his Wainwright legs. So I'm on the WhatsApp chat of Tom's Wainwright sort of chat, summer and winter, and Tim always seemed to make sensible comments. And I didn't know he was a coach, but whenever there was a query, you'd get a variety of answers. Yeah, you can do it, mate. And then you get this really measured comment.
Mm,
And I thought,
Mm.
yeah, okay, that's a guy who knows what he's talking about. So I phoned Tim after I'd bombed out of my third attempt, and I think it's fair to say I think I was fit enough. I'd done a heck of a lot of training in the Alps again. I go to Chamonix most summers, most August, and training. But I blew up on U Barrow. I was
yeah.
in enough time to do it, but there was just nothing there. You
Mm.
know, the
Mm,
heart rate was low, but there was just absolutely nothing in the legs, no power. So,
right.
I had a long chat with Tim, and he sort of speculated as what it might have been, and fueling came up, and I think that's a fair one because I'd been suffering from night nausea on leg two, couldn't really eat.
Mm,
It was a very hot night anyway. It was at 18 degrees on the Dodds. It was just like, you know, shirt off, perspiring like mad. So suffice to say, even though, as a biologist, I knew about fueling and the importance of it, I wasn't fueling properly. Um, and then when we dug into it, I wasn't training properly. I was training too hard. It wasn't consistent.
mm,
And I guess this is the age-related thing, really. So if I, went off and crashed myself over a BG leg for a training run, I'd be taking 2 days to recover before I could, go out and do a decent run. So what Tim introduced was certainly less distance, less punishing, you know, more zone two training, getting that consistency 6 days a week, introduce the strength and conditioning, getting your rest. So, it's 10 years into my ultra running career, as it were. I then discover what I should be doing. Um,
It's
That's
funny
funny.
that you mentioned like you got a measured sort of sensible comment from Tim in that WhatsApp chat. I actually have had one from him of my own before I'd really started looking at ultras as well. I was in the Ultra Trail Snowdonia Facebook, which is a bit of a
I,
quagmire of interesting people, shall we say. But again, when I was sort of trying to get some information, like I was very much a complete newbie to ultra running. Like Tim was, I remember Tim being one of the people who was really kind, very quick to respond, and very helpful right from the off. I was like, this is a nice guy. And then I
mm,
saw his name a couple of years
Mm.
later. I was like, oh, actually, he's a great runner and a great coach in his own right. It's not just some
yeah,
some
yeah, he is.
random guy.
Yeah, all what you say there is very true. And yeah, I got to know Tim quite well. I'm actually now on the HP3 team as a mountaineering advisor, so I'm part of that team, but he still coaches me. Um, yeah,
Nice.
no, it's a good setup. So yeah, that and again, going back to the age thing, I think, and linking into a question that was posed at the start about, maybe how does it change, or because I started late and because I'm just used to plowing through everything. I'm just used to plowing through physical challenges. I've kind of always done that. The things that I've done of, I've not really thought about, well, you better have a few days off and recover. I've just gone from one thing to the next. Not the right thing to do, because obviously
Mm.
you run down your immune system, you get ill. But I've just been like probably for about 10 years, just like a bit of an icebreaker, really, which is not a good strategy. Let me, don't do this at home, folks. It's not a good strategy, but it was my default driver, if that makes sense. You know, um, and even if we are resilient and determined and all those things, as we get older, we do need to train smarter, and we do need to rest, and we do need to realize our capabilities. And certainly with work now, I used to just like cram work in and around my training. And I think I did that. I can't remember which year it was, last year or the year before. And I just thought, this doesn't work. I'm tiring myself out
Mhm.
on my feet doing whatever it is, mountain safety and races or DV supervision. And when it comes to my training, I'm knackered and I can't train properly. So, I think getting the balance right and realizing your limitations is really important.
So how do you fit it in then? I mean, how do you've got to work, you do the mountain safety and the DOV for work.
Yeah, so this year I've deliberately not put as much work in the diary. So I currently am not doing any DV supervision this year. I mean, whether or not I get called up, last minute for an emergency, it's neither here nor there. That might happen. Um, so I've deliberately put less in, knowing that things will crop up. And also, I want to focus my efforts if I'm working on more mountaineering-y, climby type work, because I worked really hard to get that MCI qualification. It took a long time, and I really enjoy that guiding and instructing side of things. So I kind of want to save my energies for that type of work, which is harder to get. But I go up to Skye and
Mhm.
work on the Coolins and do the Coolin Ridge and things like that. So I'll have 3 weeks up there in May, and I'll just try and pick up bits of work. But if you fill your diary full of other things, if you intercalate it with it, you just can't do that. So I've specifically said, Kate, so this year is, if I'm going to have another crack at the bob, I've got to focus on it more, not just fit
Mm.
the training around other things. And it
Is
even
that your
gets,
main goal now, this year?
I think run wise, it's my only one, to be honest. You know, um, I'm not someone who's got a whole list of races that I want to do. I feel quite privileged and pleased with what I've
Mm.
done.
Mm.
Um, because I do other things as well, and and that's part. Therein lies part of the problem. It's climbing, mountaineering, running, all demands on your body, your energy systems. If I train hard for running, I don't climb as much. That goes down, and vice versa. So getting the balance is quite hard.
Oh man, I hope you do it. Fifth
Yeah.
try. Yeah.
I do, and people say when. Well, I've just had a bit of a knockback this last month. I had quite a nasty bronchial infection in March that takes you out for a few weeks, and it interfered with a ski trip that I wasn't too happy about. But then, when you come back from, I've not really done a lot of training in the last 6 weeks. I've just been ticking over bits. So therefore, my default would be get back on it, Chris, get up those mountains, just get back on where you left off. And no, you can't. You can't do that. You got to readjust. Okay, so you might not have another crack until October. Well, head torches are really good, and I don't mind the dark, and that's fine. But so you shift your plan accordingly to how your body is and how you're doing, as opposed to having I must do it then. So yeah, I'm being more focused and more adaptable, and kind of more of the belief that it'll happen. It will happen.
See, that seems like that's like such a wise head talking, because as soon as you were talking about I have to postpone it a bit, I was thinking, yeah, maybe July, that'd be really patient if you wait till July, and then you start October. Oh, it's a lesson in me needing to be even more patient, I think.
So the strategy, and also I think it's really important, and it's something that's dawned on me in the last few weeks, is even though I did the Challenger South only sort of 3 months ago, you never know what's around the corner. You never know how your body's changing. It might come a point where it says, well, sorry, mate, that's enough. You're not doing anymore. You just never know. So there's no guarantee that even with my plan that it's going to, bear fruit. I don't know. And that doesn't bother me, because that's part of the unknown again. That I think, well, yeah, great, so it's letting go of that grabbing onto I must do this, to, well, let's have a plan, let's give it a go.
Yeah.
But we just don't know. We just don't know what's going to happen.
How do you find the pressure of getting a year older to doing something that is so time constrained? Do we know I don't know what the oldest person to have completed the Bob is, but that it is difficult, as we know. How do you handle
That's a
that?
brilliant question. It's a brilliant question, and I think it's fair to say in the last couple of years the pressure has come from that kind of, well, you're a year older, things are going to go downhill rather than uphill, aren't they, Chris? So, how many more of these next year have you got? That's the thing. And I think to counter that, so linking back into training with Tim, just to kind of finish off that anecdote. So Tim prepped me for the Challenger North.
Right.
So I kind of bombed out the Bob in the end of September, but it might have even been the beginning of October. I can't remember when. It was a late attempt. So he had 3 months basically, which included recovery from, I still did a 50 miler, remember,
Yeah.
at about 6,500 meters. It's still a big day out. So he prepped me for the Challenger North and really scaled it back. And, I was Tim, I'm not running enough. Are you sure this is going to work? It's a big race, the Challenger North. It's 160. Trust me, trust me. He just kept saying, trust me. And I actually had the best race. I think that's the best result I've ever had of any ultra. I got a top 20 place out of 100 starters.
Awesome.
And I was just, for me, I was flying. And I was still critical of some of my decisions, and the thing with the spine, particularly those, the longer ones, it's about your decisions, your sleep decisions and wear and things like that, and kit decisions. So I thought, well, yeah, it works. What he did with me works. So thank you. Just had another cup of tea brought to me.
Perfect.
Yeah, so that was without asking as well. That's great. So I then thought, yeah, whatever the strategy was, it actually works.
Mm,
Um, so to that end, so year on year, so 25, I worked on the spine again, and I didn't really do any running challenges, but I just kept sort of training, with the view to this, the Challenges South that's just gone. And I found that I thought, well, I'm still on the up actually, because I've not maximized my potential yet. Whereas, numbers will tell me I should be on the down because
mm.
of my late entrance to the party.
Mm.
I'm still making marginal improvements.
Well, this
So as
is
long
what
as I,
Absolutely. I can understand that.
yeah, this is what I was going to say earlier when you said that you felt at a disadvantage for starting later, because actually, I think you, by starting at 50, you weren't comparing yourself to a younger runner.
mm,
So you weren't, you were just going forward, going, yeah, this is great. And I was going to ask, yeah, because now it sounds like you've continually improved
yeah,
as you've gone through the, in the last 12, 13 years or whatever it is,
yeah,
that yeah, you've kind of bumbled it for the first 10, then you found a coach.
exactly, exactly.
And you're still on the up. So actually, when you look back now to when you started, you can compare yourself favorably, whereas the rest of us, I'm looking back and all I can see is someone that was faster and quicker and and
Yeah,
better.
no, exactly right. That's spot on. And I have thought that a few times actually. I thought, I look back to my UTMB performance, thought, crikey, if I did it now with the knowledge I have now, I'd be, far more efficient.
Mm.
But yeah, so it was 10 years of self-learning, making mistakes, and as we know, there's no such thing as failure. Well, I was fortunate. I've not really DNF'd, but is that saying, a failure is first attempt in learning, isn't it?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
learn. So I've been lucky in the sense that I've squeaked over the line in these races, but I've learned an awful lot as well, and
Mm.
refined as I've gone on. And so with respect to you know, the human body, the machine, and how to sort of get the most out of that. That's been tweaked over the last 3 years, with 2.5 years with Tim's advice. So, you can put it into sort of three categories. There's the training smart, there's the not overtraining, there's getting the actual physical training that you do right for you, uh, in accordance with strength and conditioning, because that for me was a game changer. Uh,
Oh,
anybody who, and it's coming to the fore now, I know, and I think to myself, well, why weren't you doing that 10 years ago? Um, because I wasn't. Uh, but so that's a big changer. And also then you start fine tuning the nutrition and going down into, okay, you got a nutrition plan. I want you on 80 grams of carb an hour. Oh wow, how am I going to achieve that? Right, let's have a food plan. And actually, yeah, you got to eat this, and you got to eat every 20 minutes. And so it's really changing fueling, not just on the
mm,
event, but in the training. Um,
Mm.
you have to train for, I'm sure people have said this before, but you have to train specifically how the event's going to be. So you've got to take yourself out at night and eat at night and do, so for a spine event, go out and do a recce at night with your full pack in the rain with the food that you need to eat, and, replicate it, because that's what it's going to be like. Um,
mm.
getting the right foods. I'm not a great gel person. Um, there's a place for them, but I've had bad GI problems if I've had too many gels and too much sweet stuff. So paying attention to that's really big. And I
Mm.
and the other thing that I tuned into last year was, which is becoming big now, is this salt testing, the sweat testing. All
I
it's
really want to do that. Yeah.
Precision fuel.
Mm.
Yeah. So
Mm.
so I did my own one, um, there's a rudimentary one that you can do, which is, how many rings of sweat do you have on your cap? How long does your dog lick your legs for when you come in after a run, and things like that. And I just knew from that, because my dog always used to lick my legs, until I pushed him away, and the cat always had, sort of stains here. I knew I was sweaty.
Yeah.
And Tim got me to do a sweat test where, you run for an hour, you weigh yourself before, you strip down, you weigh yourself. Obviously, you monitor liquids in, food in, try and estimate if you've been for a pee or something. Come back from the run, take your wet clothes off, weigh yourself. And I was losing 1.2 kilos in an hour.
Wow.
Whoa.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
Wow.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And that's just liquid. That is just
well,
God.
well, some of that might be glycogen, mightn't it? Some of it might be, but it's predominantly a kilo is liquid.
Mm. Wow.
Sweaty man.
Yeah, real sweaty. So I knew for me, so obviously I'm losing a lot of sodium. And if you're losing a lot of electrolytes in your feeding routine, you've got to make sure you're putting those electrolytes back in. And I've used mountain fuel quite a bit as well, and making sure that on the longer events, the electrolytes are going in, your branched chain amino acids are going in for muscle repair. So it's not just carbs. So I think when you start fine tuning all those things, it's a bit like, you can have the most superb car with a brilliant engine, but if you've not got the right fuel in it or the right type of oil, and you thrash it, it's not going to perform as well as if you've got everything tweaked perfectly and you're sort of giving it the right things. It's the same with our bodies. So, playing with all that and getting your body fine tuned to do the best it can. As you get older, you've got to.
Absolutely. It gives rise to an interesting sort of debate with young people these days, because all this information is so much more readily available, and you had like sort of 10 years before you'd clocked it at all. Like, I mean, I didn't look at nutrition outside of just picking whatever looked like the nicest flavor gel for at least the first sort of 5, 6 years. So it makes you wonder, like, are younger runners going to come to this a bit quicker now? Is it cooler to know your grams per hour?
Yeah, it's if people haven't got coaches, I don't know how, unless they do profuse amounts of reading, I don't know how tuned they'll be to it. And the thing is about being younger, you can get away with a lot more.
Yeah.
You can cuff it and get away, the body is more resilient. You can get away with a lot more, but you can't when you're older. You really can't. And, particularly the recovery side of things. So, I think. So when I turned 60, it was oh my God, 60, that's awful. But I was still doing some really good stuff. But I think, as you start to clock through 64 this year, you think, well, there will be slight changes taking place. And rather than, be in denial, I've got to acknowledge those and actually, address them. And you've got to be in tune. I mean, we've got these things that monitor everything, haven't we? We live by metrics these days, and you can look at those numbers, but you can also say, well, how do I feel today? And how's the training feeling? Is it strained, or is it okay? And listening to your body
Yeah,
is really,
absolutely.
really important. Listening to your body.
I know it's all I've been told to do for years, and I don't think people will be asking themselves that as much with sort of like Runner or other sort of AI training apps. I think only a real coach is going to really impress on you that you do need to ask yourself that question.
Yeah, yeah,
I think
and
also that mine is very good at telling me to stop ragging myself or beating myself up if I
yeah,
can't do stuff, if I'm too busy, if everything sinks one week. She reminds me to be kind to myself and
mm,
just let it go, and it's not the end of the world. And
exactly that. Be kind to yourself, and you've
Mm.
also got to be. It also begs the question: what am I trying to achieve here? Is what I'm about to do going to make me fitter, stronger, or is
Mm.
it going to give me more fatigue? Is what am I trying to achieve here? Because we can be driven by these, regimes, these sort of schedules, and actually there comes a point where it could be counterproductive. So, if we ask that question, will this make me better?
Mm.
Mm.
I need to ask that question a lot more.
Yeah. Will it make me worse? Possibly. Should I be doing it today then? Should I change it? So, and I think, yeah, I think people who are younger, if they can adopt these procedures, I think, yeah, it will increase performance and it'll probably improve longevity in the race scene as well. Um,
Do you think
no
it's
Yeah.
easier
doubt.
to answer that, to ask yourself those sorts of questions as an older athlete? And or does that never really change? I'm hoping it changes.
Well, yeah, I'm a lot wiser now
Yeah.
than I used to be. Um, and I certainly didn't ask those questions. I mean, one of the things I did, I was still in my 30s. Um, I did parachute regiment selection, and that the mentality of that was just, well, you run till you pass out or vomit, basically.
Mm.
Uh, and that's 25 years ago now, and the mentality then and in the military is very different to it is now. But that mindset was kind of stuck in me for quite some time. I have to push, push, push until I pass out. Now, that has its place in a selection test because it sort of filters out people to see if they have got that commitment to the end, as it were. But for training for running, it's
Mm.
it's not sensible, really.
My
It's
partner's like
detrimental.
that. He's ex-army, and the few times we've been for a run, and he doesn't run anymore. Since he left, he's like, no, I don't need to do it anymore. But a few times I've dragged him out. 5K, he's gone out 8-minute miles and died at the end of it. And I'm like, what on earth was that? What
Yeah,
are you
yeah,
doing? Oh, I can only run at that pace. I can't run any slower.
yeah,
That's it. And it's like, but no, you can. And quite frankly, at your age, that is a heart attack waiting to happen.
yeah,
Yeah, it's almost like yeah, it is. Like you say, it's a mindset. Just out as fast as you can,
yeah,
until
yeah.
you drop dead at the end of it. It's crazy.
Mm.
So that word mindset, Kate's really important, isn't it? Because people talk a lot about the ultra mindset. Um,
Mm.
there's what's a guy's name? Travis, somebody American guy, written a book about the ultra mindset. Um, and there certainly is a mindset required for an ultra athlete, which is about not just not giving in, but how to endure whilst you're completing these long events. And part of it also is in the planning, isn't it? It's in the planning and the preparation, and it's
Yeah.
it's looking and it's looking at all those details so that you don't suffer as much, perhaps. Um, but there's definitely a mindset to it, particularly to the multi-day events. I mean,
Mm.
that question is, if you let the question enter your head, oh, shall I quit? Then, well, that's the start of the end, isn't it? That's a slippery slope. So there's got to be that, you know, unless something dire happens, I'm
Mm.
not quitting this. I'm going to find a way to finish.
I think it's a real knife edge. I mean, I've seen athletes who who will enter that mindset and they will finish at any cost, and
Mm,
it comes at great cost to them.
mm,
Um, and I, and it's sort of trying to find that balance between, yeah, being able to push yourself through those times that
mm,
it's your head trying to get you to stop, but actually physically you just got to beat that and you'll come out the other side and you'll
mm,
be on the up again. And it's sort of learning that, but then also recognizing, do you know what, if I keep going, I'm going to be physically destroyed. That
yeah,
there is a point where the body genuinely is about to break, not your mind kind of tricking you into think it's about to break.
You're absolutely right, and permit me for this short sort of anecdote. So on the spine, okay, the full spine in 23, I blew up at Malham. Okay, and the
Right.
reason I blew up at Malham is I was running it with a friend, and I didn't really want to run it with somebody, but anyway, he kind of talked me into it. But he's lighter and quicker than me. So I think it's fair to say in the first day I was perhaps going half a yard pacer than was comfortable for me. And various, which you do when you're fresh. Anyway, so I
Mm.
blew up at Malham and my legs seized and I actually ground to a halt and I sort of crawled into the village at Malham and I had to say to my mate and there's other people, I'm really sorry, but I'm finished and you carry on. And he didn't want to leave me. I said, mate, you got to go. Just forget about
Mm.
me. So I was, I wasn't even going at 1 mile an hour, probably half a mile an hour. And I had a chat with some SST people who were there, and I knew one of them. It's a girl I'd worked with. And I said, I think, I was thinking I'm done for. I can't move. That's me. I'm really sad. I'm finished. And, you know, one of the guys said, should I call the broom wagon? And something just sparked in me, and I just went, "Oh God, the broom wagon! Oh no, I can't go on a broom wagon. That'd be awful." And is this it? Is this really happening to me? And this last said to me, she said, "Look, you've got, I think, as something like 8 hours before the cut-off at Malham Field Study Centre. Go into the
Mm.
pub, get yourself a pint of Coke or something, or a sandwich, lie down in front of the fire." And then and then go into the public toilets, get your head down for a couple of hours, and then see how you feel. And that's exactly what I did. And
Mm.
I had a bit of refreshment in the stag, and then went into the loos and got my bivvy kit out and had a sleep. Woke up, made a brew, had a boil in the bag, and then boom, I just went. And
Yeah.
and and the rest is history. But the point is exactly what you were saying. There came that point where I thought my body's stopped. That's it. I'm done.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
was I was prepared for that minute to accept defeat.
It's so good that you accepted the advice though as well at that point because so many
Yeah.
people once they've made their mind up that's it. But you decided to give it a go and it worked. But normally
Yeah,
when that switch is flipped,
yeah,
it's
I think
because
that
if you
impossible
had
to go
time,
back.
if you've got time on your side and you're ahead of the cutoff, there's
Mm,
always that. Well, just go to the next checkpoint. Just walk
yeah.
to it, amble, as you say, stop, have a rest, then walk. Just make it to the next checkpoint because you never know
I
how
mm.
you
just couldn't,
feel.
at that time I couldn't walk. It was so it was
Yeah.
like it was
Yeah.
really.
Do you
But
think also
what
the pressure with your friend having gone, do you think that had slightly lifted off you mentally and you thought, well, I can now go at my pace?
um, I'm not sure, but I prefer running on my own anyway.
Mm.
For many reasons, but I don't know. But what it does do, it does prove the sort of power of recovery of
Mm.
food, lying down, even just lying down
Mm.
without sleep, you know, hot drink, give your body time, it repaired. And it repaired enough to do another
Mm.
200 miles,
Yeah.
you know.
Yes. I mean, yeah, you weren't even halfway, were you?
No. So
Was
yeah.
that the lowest point of any of the three spines?
That was a low point. I think I had on the Challenger North when I was talking about sleep decisions. It was very cold. That was the year where basically I had ice spikes on from the start, and it was -10 below that for a lot of the time. It was really really cold. It was rock solid ground, and I had an unsuccessful bivvy in some toilets at Greenhead where there was a lot of noise in the toilets next door, and I didn't sleep. And then I fell asleep and woke up late, but wasn't refreshed. And I had to have a bivvy on Hadrian's Wall. It was where you got to quench that when your head's nodding and you literally can't stay awake. You got to quench it. and sometimes half an hour will do it. And so I'd slept and it wasn't, and I had to make this bivvy, as I say, on Hadrian's Wall, and I had the wrong sleeping bag with me because I didn't think I was going to be bivvying, so I'd switched my heavy one for my light one, and I was in the bag in all my clothes, and I could feel Jack Frost coming through all the layers, and I was cold. And at that point, and it was 2 o'clock at night, and at that point, the thought just comes through: what am I going to do now? I've got nowhere to go. I've got no spare cards in my back pocket. I can't stay here. I'm gonna freeze. So I have to pack up and get moving again, even though my head's still going, and I just got to keep pushing through till say 5 o'clock when the hormones will kick in. And I think that was a really difficult point to get through.
Oh man, it sounds it.
Yeah.
And so they're the challenges, and again, I think it comes back to that mountaineering background, and not just mountaineering. I've been on lots of expeditions, many, long expeditions overseas, mountainous areas, in the Arctic. And so there's bivvying in the cold isn't an issue. It's a thing that you do. It's a tool. So that aspect, I bivvied 5 times on the full spine, toilets behind a wall in a forest. It wasn't a big deal. It was. So I think that background of expeditioning really, really helped, because it was, well, this is a normal thing to do, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. If anything, it kind of gave you the knowledge that was a scary moment, though, because you knew from experience that I'm very, very cold here, and there's not anything else I can do about it.
Yeah, I experienced a depth of vulnerability, and also further on, once I got onto the Cheviot, and again, it was I can't remember, it was middle of the night. The next day would have been, and I had all my jackets on and everything on, and I could feel the cold coming in. And you're in quite a remote bit once you're up on the past Roman camp and in the middle there. And I just thought, this is serious. My only option is to get in my sleeping bag and bunker down if something happens. So yeah, even with all that background, you're right, I did experience a vulnerability. I realized my own vulnerability, and it's like, keep moving, just keep moving, just keep moving.
That's
So I guess,
scary.
yeah,
How
really
does some
scary.
guy from London manage?
Well, sometimes people don't, do they? Yeah.
It really shows you just how important that proper kit list is, and to not skimp on what might be a slightly heavier sleeping bag that might have kept you that little bit warmer.
Yeah, I mean, a zero. They say a zero bag. I mean, I had a zero bag and a -8 bag, and I thought, right, I'm going to take the zero bag. If there's a fat chance I'm not going to bivvy between those 2 checkpoints, and I'll put the heavy bag in if I need to. I got it wrong, but yeah, a zero bag in -10 it's not going to touch the sides really.
It's a good lesson.
And I've even working on it as safety and the safety team, I see people I said, is that your warm jacket? And they go, yeah, and they're shivering, and it's not a warm jacket. It's like it fulfills the kit list requirements, but it's not good enough for the conditions necessarily. So and people suffer as a result.
Well, thankfully you didn't.
Yeah.
Or not enough anyway to not finish the race.
That's right. Yeah, no, it was a proud moment when I finished that. And I know, lots of people have done it, but yeah, it was. I think that enduring, and yeah, it was a lot of elation. And I was 60, so doing all 3 of them in my 60s, I thought, well, that's not bad going actually.
Oh, it's very cool. It's very
definitely.
cool.
That is. That's great. And it inspires me as well. So that's great.
Well, that's,
and anyone else listening.
A lot of people say, why do you do it? And I think, having been a teacher and an instructor, a big part of me is to inspire people and help people to achieve, because that euphoria that comes with achievement, you can't, if you could can it, it'd cost a lot of money, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely would.
It's been a
Yeah,
while since I felt it.
yeah.
But well, we've kept you long enough. Robin, have you got
I,
any last questions?
Oh,
I'm
I had so many. I had so many.
far away. Yeah, and
Um,
I've got a great quote at the end as well that I want to give you.
okay, great. I suppose, do you think the spine, just more focusing actually on what you've said, do you think the spine challenges are going to give you anything to help with the bob, or do you think that's too separate?
Mm.
I That's a very good question, and you know, I'm looking for an answer. The answer to that is I don't know. If anything, it it tells me that I can set out to do something that I once thought was unachievable and I achieved. And I
Mm,
think that's the case with the UTMB as well. I definitely thought for a number of years, in fact, when I first saw the posters in Chamonix, I thought I'll never be able to do that. That's for
Mm.
those hardened, nutty athletes that are running in the mountains all the time. Um, and not for me necessarily. Bit of imposter syndrome, really. So the fact that I did, and the same with the spine, when I first saw it and thought, "Wow, I don't think I'd be able to do that, but I'd love to." It gives me that, you can translate that over to the bob, and I think
Mm.
there's that. And then there's also the fact that Coach Tim did actually tweak things sufficiently to get me a good result. So, okay, there's method in the madness. Let's trust in the plan.
mm.
So those two things, I
Mm.
think, and God willing, basically. Yeah, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, isn't it?
Are you supported? Are you running with people on the bob?
Yeah, I would be. And, previous years I've had a team and fixed a date and a team in advance. I'm not going to do that this time. It's going to be, I've got a few people who I can call upon who I know could do double legs or even triple legs. I mean, I bumped into Arthur Hill on one of my recce's, the guy who's just,
Nice. Yeah.
and he kept in touch with me on Strava and just said, let me know when you're doing your bob, I'll help you. I mean, fantastic. You got people like that and
Mm.
others,
Mm.
and so the plan is with Tim and some of the people he knows. Howard Dracup's just done it.
Yeah.
Um, have a window, look at the weather, and say, right, I'm going then, and right, who's available? So you've got like your scratch team of people on standby who could. And then when the weather's right, because I'm not going out if the weather's not right, because I know, that's one of the marginal gains that I need. I need good weather
Mm.
Mm.
because there's not enough in reserve. So it's almost, and also not having months to sort of tick off on a calendar, but just say, right, it's tomorrow, let's go.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
I'm so
we're
excited for
wishing
you.
you, yeah, wishing you the very, very best on that. You'll
Yeah.
have to come back and let us know how you get on.
Mm.
Well, yeah. I will let you know. It is a watch this space, but yeah, it could be any time between now and the end of October, really.
Yeah.
Well,
What's the quote that you wanted to
Oh
finish
yeah,
on?
yeah. I've not had a chance to knit this in. It's one of my favourite quotes, actually. It's a Theodore Roosevelt quote, and it's part of his speech from the citizenship in 1909 in France, and it's about it goes. It says it's not the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions? Who spends himself in a worthy cause? Who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement? And who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails whilst daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat?
Whoa, that's so good, isn't it?
Yeah,
I just love it. I just
Yeah.
love it, and it
yeah.
basically, subtext is if you don't have a go, you don't know.
Don't try.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I'm off out for another run.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk
Yeah,
to you.
thank you, Chris.
Yeah, lovely to talk to you both too.